Good morning and welcome to another live stream with Empty Cloud Monastery. Today we'll be continuing with looking at some Dhammapada verses and discussing their meaning. First, I'll pay homage to the Buddhas. This is homage to all the Buddhas of past, present, and future. They all have exactly the same qualities, so we can respect all of them together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So as mentioned, we'll be continuing with Dhammapada verses. Today we'll be looking at verses 84, 85, and 86. So as usual, I'll read through the translations and refer back to the Pali text when relevant. And I'll take any questions you might have at the end. So please feel free to type in questions at any time, and I'll answer them once I've gone through all the verses. So the first verse, 84, says, whether because of oneself or because of another, one should not wish to obtain children, wealth, lordship, or personal success in ways contrary to Dhamma. Instead, let one be virtuous, wise, and in accord with Dhamma. So a very short verse and very straightforward in its meaning. So the Buddha's point here is that one should always act in accordance with Dhamma. So it's interesting here, he is not actually saying that you shouldn't try to have children or shouldn't try to get wealth or shouldn't try to have power or success. He's not saying you shouldn't do those things, but rather he's saying if you're going to pursue any kind of worldly gain, then you should make sure you're doing so completely in accordance with Dhamma. So not doing anything immoral in the way of cheating or stealing or lying or engaging in any kind of wrong livelihood or harmful occupation in order to achieve your worldly goals. So, and again, he emphasizes not either for your own sake or for another person. So sometimes we try to justify our misconduct by saying, oh, I'm doing it for somebody else. So like the classic case of, say, a parent who steals or does wrong livelihood in order to provide for their children. And they justify their misconduct by saying, well, I'm doing it for somebody else's sake. I'm not just doing it out of my own greed. I'm doing it for the benefit of somebody else. Well, the problem is that even if you're doing it for a good reason, you're still generating bad karma. You're still causing harm and therefore harming yourself as well as others. So you might be doing it for an honorable reason, but the conduct itself is still contrary to Dhamma. And so that's even in the most noble of cases, where you're pursuing gain for the benefit of other people. So something which seems at first to be very good motivations. But if that good motivation leads you to doing harmful things, then you will reap the karma of both. You're producing both bad karma by doing harmful actions, but also mixed with a little bit of good karma by doing it for wholesome reasons. But the Buddha says it's better just to not do any bad karma at all. So it's better to not have children than to do unwholesome things for the sake of having children. It's better to not have wealth than to do unwholesome things in order to get wealth. It's better to not have power or control than to acquire power through unwholesome means. And similarly with success. So personal success is not something that we should be willing to sacrifice our own moral principles for. Again, the Buddha here is recognizing that for those who are not monks, which is most people, for those who are not monks, it's quite likely that they're going to spend a fair amount of time and effort pursuing children, wealth, power, and success. So it's just emphasizing to make sure that you do so in wholesome ways, in virtuous ways, harmless ways. So practicing right livelihood. So right livelihood, the simplest definition of it is simply to acquire wealth in ways that cause no harm to any sentient being. This is right livelihood. Wrong livelihood is to acquire wealth in any way which harms any being, including yourself. So even if you're working in a hazardous job, maybe working in a coal mine, for example, where you're constantly breathing in toxic dust, well, that's technically wrong livelihood because you're hurting someone. You're hurting yourself. Therefore, it's wrong livelihood. And of course, any occupation which is harmful to others is clearly wrong livelihood. So again, always try to act in a way that brings benefit to beings instead of harming them. So that verse is fairly straightforward. And the next two, verse 85 and 86, these are a set pair, so these come together. Verse 85 says, "Few are the humans who go beyond. Most people only run around on the shore. Those who act in accordance with the well-explained Dhamma will go beyond the mortal realm, so difficult to escape." So this is also a really beautiful little verse. And particularly the first part, so verse 85, "Few are the humans who go beyond. Most people only run around on the shore." I find this imagery particularly evocative. So one of the common metaphors that the Buddha uses in the suttas is the metaphor of the near shore and the far shore. So the near shore represents samsara, so the world of dukkha, the experience of delusion, of defilement, of discomfort and anguish. And the far shore is nibbana, it's awakening, it's enlightenment, it's complete freedom from dukkha, freedom from defilement, freedom from delusion. It's this perfect wisdom and compassion which we call an awakened being. So the Buddha is saying, and there are few humans who actually go from the near shore to the far shore. He's saying most of them just run around on the near shore. So we're just constantly running in circles on the near shore and wondering why our life is not so great. Wondering why we still experience depression and anxiety and confusion. And it's because we've never tried to cross over to the far shore. We're always just running up and down along the banks of the dangerous side of the river. But the Buddha says those who act in accordance with the Dhamma will go beyond the mortal realm so difficult to escape. So the mortal realm, the Pali word here is machu deiyang, which it means the realm of death, the realm of mortality. So one of the characteristics of samsara is death. So every living being dies. It dies and is born again and dies again and is born again and dies again and is born again. So in Buddhism, we don't want to be born again. In fact, we're trying to not be born again. That's our whole purpose in practicing Buddhism, is to stop the cycle of birth and death. And that's because we recognize that birth is dukkha, living is dukkha, and death is dukkha. And the cycle just keeps repeating itself over and over and over and over and over again. So to be born again means dying again. To be born again means suffering again. And to be born again means to be continuously caught in this cycle of defilement, delusion, and craving. So there is a way beyond. So this is part of what makes Buddhism such a profoundly optimistic way of looking at the world, is that there is a way to go completely beyond all of our defilements and delusions. There is a way to completely purify the mind and escape from the cycle of birth and death. And that's through learning the Dhamma and practicing the Dhamma. So cultivating right view. So right view is the critical foundation. Right view is the forerunner, the primary of all wholesome states. So as is clearly stated and elsewhere in the suttas. So cultivating right view. And then from that basis of right view, practicing the other 7 aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path. So practicing the complete Eightfold Path with the foundation of right view. And right view we cultivate through studying the suttas, contemplating their meaning, listening to Dhamma talks, discussing the Dhamma, particularly with advanced practitioners, senior monastics. Then we can come to a deeper understanding of what right view is, and therefore have a better foundation for practicing the Eightfold Path. So that's it for these. So a few quick Dhammapada verses to get your day off on the right foot. So we can respect these verses with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And at this time, I'll take any questions that you might have. So I see many people checking in today. So hello to Charles Lee, Geeta, John, Michael, Jayanta, Amaranta, Niranjan, Jenny, Luigi, Thinnery, Si Yong, Samang, Shrima, Sam, Venerable Notan Barua, hello Venerable, and Wayne. Welcome everyone. So I see one question so far from Venerable Notan. So he says, I need to know in this verse that this shore means what? Other shore means Nibbana or not? Between them, the ocean means what? So as I said, this shore means samsara. So it's a stand-in for delusion, defilement, dukkha, suffering, confusion, craving. And the far shore represents, yes, nibbana, so full awakening, complete purity of mind, direct understanding of the true nature of reality, the full pinnacle of wisdom and compassion. And the ocean in between is the stream of defilements, the flood of defilements. That's how it's defined in a few suttas. The Buddha talks about the near shore, which is samsara, the far shore, which is nibbana. And in between, we have this flood of defilements. And it's through crossing over this flood of unwholesome influences in our mind that we're able to attain nibbana. And Bhavani asks, how to live knowing that I am non-self? Well, you seem to still be living, so I don't actually see what the problem is. So it's like asking, how does a tree live knowing that it's non-self? Well, it's not bothered. It just is what it is. So honestly, I don't understand what the problem is. It's also a little bit off topic, so this might be a better question for monk chat. So I might encourage you to bring this to monk chat tomorrow evening, and we can maybe give a bit deeper explanation about what you mean by your question, and we'll give a more thorough answer during monk chat. And that's the last question from online. Anything from the residents? No? Yeah? Oh, here's another question. Wayne asks, could you give us as householders one assignment today besides daily meditation practice that will help ensure that we are not just running up and down the shore? Yeah, spend at least 15 minutes reading the suttas. If you're new to the suttas, I recommend the anthology called In the Buddha's Words. Read it cover to cover. So commit to at least 15 minutes a day, reading it cover to cover. Other important things: follow the 5 precepts constantly, without fail. Deep commitment to the 5 precepts. Constant mindfulness during all activities. Equanimity, no matter what you're experiencing. Try to keep your mind calm and non-reactive, no matter what happens to you. Practice kindness, generosity. Those are a few things that make a big difference. Gita asks, are we shackled to this shore because due to the root cause of ignorance? Yeah, fundamentally. And the root cause of ignorance is the basic reason why we're not awakened. And it's the reason why we experience dukkha. So it's ignorance of the Four Noble Truths, ignorance of the 3 characteristics, ignorance of the nature of defilement. This is what keeps us caught in samsara, stuck on the near shore. And Seyong asks, what is the title of the book again? So it's called In the Buddha's Words. It's an anthology of suttas translated and compiled by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. Again, it's called In the Buddha's Words. So it's a very good way to get started with reading the suttas. And it's the last question online. So I think we can go ahead and end this morning with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And you can join us again this evening for another meditation and Dhamma talk, and then tomorrow morning and evening as usual. So we'll see you next time.